in a country that loves money more than it loves its people, civil disobedience will always be the correct answer. The Montgomery Bus Boycott began as only a one-day boycott against the Montgomery bus line on the day of Rosa Parks' court hearing after she had been arrested. Groups of people mobilized around her arrest, and then it became something that lasted much longer. Claudette Colvin was another young black woman who was also arrested on a Montgomery bus before Rosa Parks. Activists had thought about galvanizing behind her and using her as the face of a movement, but at 15 years old she became pregnant and leaders decided that she would not be a good representation. Some people do know this, and there's a lot of conversation in the black community around whether or not she was discriminated against and if she could have carried the movement in the same way that Rosa Parks did. So Rosa Parks had already had multiple run-ins with the bus driver that was driving the bus the day that she was arrested. Her, Claudette Colvin, and a host of other black women had been dealing with severe discrimination and abuse in the Montgomery bus line for years. It had become a serious problem, especially for young black women. Mary Fair Burks, who also experienced severe racism and discrimination on the Montgomery bus line, started the Women's Political Council of Montgomery, which they are the ones who created the grassroots organization of the actual Montgomery bus boycott after realizing how many women have been negatively affected on the Montgomery bus boy lines. It is often thought that black leaders and social rights activists created the bus boycott and initiated Rosa Parks as the catalyst for the movement, but it is actually black women, like everything else, who were the boots on the ground, who organized amongst themselves after recognizing that they were particularly a vulnerable group due to this issue. They were the ones who went to college campuses, printed out the flyers, passed them out to people in Montgomery, reached out to civil rights leaders and lawyers, and got them to back them up, which expanded the boycott from just a one-day thing to a one-year thing. It was 300 and I believe 80 days, don't quote me, but it was a little bit over a year before the Supreme Court demanded that Montgomery integrate their bus line. There were about 50,000 black people living in Montgomery at the time, and on record, about 40,000 people routinely stopped using the Montgomery buses. Now, I think that it is often thought that it was a easy, everybody was on board. Come on now, black people, we know black people. There were definitely people who were saying, why would I start riding the buses? I gotta get to work. I gotta get to school. I gotta get to that. Nobody's gonna do that. It's not gonna change anything. We can still shop at Target. It doesn't really matter anyway. Not only was it successful in Montgomery, but it sparked similar movements around the country, around the South especially, to desegregate other cities and states, and eventually led to stores and restaurants and other places of business that black people were tired of spending their money and being treated as less than. In this season of boycott and protest and civil disobedience, I would just like to bring to the forefront as a social studies teacher that in a country that loves money more than it loves its people, civil disobedience will always be the correct answer. Have a great Friday.